committee to voluntarily speak with investigators. That means the committee could potentially subpoena him. He was the first lawmaker to receive a request like this from the committee investigating the Capitol insurrection. They want to talk to him about several things, including his efforts to install former Justice Department Attorney Jeffrey Clark as the acting Attorney General. Perry connected Clark and the former president when he was pressuring the Justice Department to find evidence that the 2020 election was stolen. It wasn't. And as we approach the one-year anniversary of the January 6th attack, the former president is planning a news conference in Mar-a-Lago on that day to air his grievances over the committee's investigation and the 2020 election. In announcing the event, he once again shared his election lies. Here now, former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh, who ran against the former president in the 2020 Republican primary. Let's start with Congressman Perry, rejecting the call from the January 6th committee to come in and answer questions from them. He calls them illegitimate, which is sort of this rhetoric we keep on hearing from the likes of Perry about anything he doesn't like. Why do they keep saying things like that?
Hey, John, I may be lousy TV tonight because I really don't care what my former colleague Scott Perry said. I'm not interested. I don't think his statement telling us why he's refusing to cooperate in the investigation, I don't think that statement even deserves a response. It's so easy to get lost in the weeds here. As the year ends, and we're almost a year removed from January 6th, John, the story is this. Scott Perry is yet one more Republican who refuses to cooperate. That's the story. Here we are, a year away from January 6th, and one more Republican won't cooperate. The Republican Party, almost to a man and a woman, refuses to cooperate with an investigation into an attack on our democracy. That's the story.
So what do you do about it then? Should the committee issue a subpoena to a sitting member of Congress?
Yes, and I believe it would be a first. Yes, like Mark Meadows, former member of Congress before him, Scott Perry should be issued a contempt citation from Congress, should be subpoenaed. This committee should do everything they need to do to get to the bottom of this. John, look, again, here we are almost a year removed from January 6th. We have one political party, the Republican Party, that for some reason doesn't want America to get to the bottom of that attack on our democracy. I get that the committee is in a tough spot and they're up against a clock, but they've got to do everything they possibly can do to these Republicans.
Well, along those lines, the New York Times is reporting, and CNN has matched it to an extent, the committee is at least considering the idea of criminal referrals to the GOJ, not on contempt, not for Perry and others, but actual actions surrounding January 6th. The Times says they could be financial actions, funding the lies that went into the insurrection. It could be, the former president himself for not doing anything to stop it. Do you think it's necessary, given your passion about this, for them to do this?
I think it's necessary to do whatever they can do, to do whatever, John, they have to do to make sure that something that I've never seen happen any other time in my lifetime, an actual insurrection, and John, this is where we need to stop and take a breath, addressing your question, and remind ourselves what happened on January 6th and what led to January 6th. Donald Trump and the people around Donald Trump systematically tried to overthrow an American election. My God, if that doesn't demand that a committee use every single tool they have to get to the bottom of it, to make sure a January 6th never happens again, then nothing does.
Well, it is happening again. To an extent, the lies happened beforehand, the insurrection happened, and the lies continued after. And the former president, who announced he's holding this news conference on the one-year anniversary of January 6th, did so with more lies. So what do you do? How should one handle that day, his news conference, do you think?
Oh, John, I've got a contrarian view here, and maybe you disagree with me, but it goes like this. Donald Trump is America's enemy and he's democracy's enemy. And I really think it's important to remind the American people of that every opportunity you have. So if Donald Trump on January 6th stands in front of the American people and rattles off a bunch of dishonest, treasonous, undemocratic stuff, I think you broadcast that. I think you put that out in front of the American people because, doggone it, John, the American people, God bless them, need to be reminded daily of who this guy is and what he did. And I think Democrats need to broadcast everything Donald Trump says.
Got about 30 seconds left, Joe. Do you think that there will be those who were there 1 year ago who will go back and try to do it all again?
I worry about more violence on this anniversary. I felt that way before. Many others felt that way before January 6th last year. I have that concern again because, John, as you said, and I hear from these folks every single day, they do not believe Joe Biden won, and they do not believe January 6th was a big deal. So I think America needs to be concerned about further violence on this 1 year anniversary.
I think the even more troubling thing is they don't think it's not that they don't think it's a big deal. It's now that they celebrate. They celebrate that day as something that should be pointed to with glee. Former Congressman Joe Walsh, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.